Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 38 of Powerbombshells. We're just two broads talking about the wrestling that we watch and enjoy most of the time. I'm Sam, and that is Mel. How are you?
Hello. Me?
Yeah.
How am I? I am. Yeah,
Hanging
what?
in.
I don't know. I'm hanging in there. I
Hanging in
am
there.
awesome. Listen to me. I'm so exciting. I'm thinking about Full Gear.
Yeah.
My mind is on Full Gear
Yeah.
and potentially Wakanda Forever, and
Yeah.
I'm not spoiling it for anybody. My other nerderies that
Yeah.
I need to indulge on. Yeah, not too much going on around here in the wrestling sphere. I mean, I've been trying to keep up on New Japan. I'm really excited for this tag league.
I am
I don't know
so
if you.
behind on that. Well, and so every year I love tag team wrestling, especially because when I was a teenager and in my my
The
early
Hardys.
20s, that's when it was the Hardy Boys, it was Edge and Christian, it was the Dudley Boys, and all that stuff. So like love tag team wrestling, especially because WWE for a long time got away. They weren't really pushing tag teams,
Yeah,
for a long time. And so, but for some reason, the World Tag League, like, it appeals to me. And every year I'm like, I'm going to give this a try. And then I never do, or I'll watch like here and there, and then I don't keep up with it. And so,
yeah, I've been bad. I almost usually because I'm good with Best of Super Juniors. I'm good with
yeah,
some of the other
exactly.
ones like that. But
Yeah,
I'm gonna
same.
give it a try. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
There's some really interesting matchups.
There are some interesting things,
Mr.
and there's some interesting teams
Roughneck
that were
Shota
left.
Umino being back in the mix is
Yes,
very
so excited
interesting.
about that. When is the
FTR being
show?
involved.
When is when is
Actually
Shota versus Osprey?
that is, I think, at the Tokyo Dome.
Is it? It's a
No, it's on
no,
that
no, no.
cross. No, it's on the crossover.
Oh, the
show.
takeover show or Xover or whatever it's called.
The big crossover pay per
Yes,
view.
that is. Oh, that's next Sunday.
Yeah,
That's right.
and I'm
Well,
gonna
I'm definitely
my
checking
pitch of
that
the
show out.
week is guys, I pay for a subscription to New Japan. I get it.
Right.
But I'm not one of the people that should have to pay for the pay-per-view because I'm already subscribed.
Yeah, I've been a subscriber for like 5 years.
Like, if you're a subscriber, at
even
minimum,
through the
I should get like some tokens towards like the amount of the
do
thing,
like Fight
or
Game. Not Fight Game. That's us.
Fight TV.
But Fight, that's what they do. They give you credits for stuff. And it was like, as much as we watch New Japan, because even in the months where the shows were not that great.
As I stuck with you through the pandemic, I never even considered canceling my New Japan subscription when there were no crowds and there were no nothing.
Well, and then you had House of Torture and Evil was champion. Like I didn't watch as much. I didn't watch as much when Evil was champion, but I never canceled my subscription. He still got paid.
And they're still going, and I'm still paying for it because I know that all these things. There's some.
Is it going to be on Fight too? Like, can we subscribe through? Because sometimes they'll do like where you can buy, instead of buying the pay-per-view through New Japan, sometimes they'll air stuff on.
I'll have to look. I haven't looked, but it is still. I find that to be something of a bummer.
Oh well, yeah, I do too.
Especially when all the other services, it's like all our pay-per-views are on the thing or whatever,
right?
Or it's even if you have like ESPN Plus and you want to buy a pay-per-view, it's still not like, I mean, it's a lot, but it's less or whatever because you paid for the season pass. So, I mean, at least give me like a season pass type discount on the thing.
Yeah, especially because it seems like they're doing them more often now. Because they're doing, because they did this. I didn't want
Collision and all of these, like a lot
well,
of
and
those
they even did
the pay-per-views.
Wasn't it a Noah show that they did or it was the show that
it took a while. They didn't do Royal Quest live, and then they took like 3 weeks to drop it. And like one of the best matches of the year was on it, that Aussie Open FTR match. Like, but they took their sweet time putting it up, and
yeah. So I really want to watch that next week, but I forgot it was one of those deals where you have to buy it, and it's like $40. I'm like, I subscribe to you. Why do I have to pay $40 for this?
And it's hard to not want to. Like, it's like Yes, I could buy it on Fight TV and be $40, or I could buy it on New Japan and pay in yen, and then I think I would actually save money that way.
You're probably right.
But I mean, so I'll have the Japanese announcers, which is fine because I love them all.
I
have no idea, but they're definitely into it. And
they're so into it. Sometimes
I'm a spoiled Japan fan because I came along after they had the English commentary. One of my best friends is like, I've been watching this channel since there was no English commentary.
Right. Yeah, I saw a lot of stuff with, I think I want to say when I started, there was English commentary, but I think it was only for select shows maybe. And so I got a lot of the Japanese commentary and I wasn't really sure what was going on, but I could always hear the inflections in their voices and the excitement. So I could tell something was happening. Or like, especially if I wasn't paying like close attention, but I could hear the which a lot of the times they would be excited about a lot of things. Like they say their energy stays up like the entire time. Like sometimes I enjoy listening to them just because I can tell they're super into whatever it is that's happening and they get really excited. And of course, but now that I have Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton and we are spoiled and Chris Charlton is so knowledgeable about stuff, which is super helpful for me to like know backstories about certain things. And like even on the shows that Kevin Kelly called by himself, like they were always really entertaining, and now him and Chris have gotten so comfortable with each other and they don't care and they just say whatever the hell they feel like. And then they don't have to worry about being on the TV station, so they don't have to watch their language. They can talk shit about people.
Really like it. They're
like they can make jokes about Michael Elgin and the protein powder.
Yes.
They get like
yes, they've been so great. I love what Kevin Kelly has done to like elevate Chris Charlton and help him understand how to become and all the credit in the world to Chris Charlton for becoming a ringside guy.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap, those two.
He's so good.
Oh my God.
Oh God. And that even reminds me that I was just
Gino thing. My God.
That's just perfection every time. But then when you were saying that, made me think
here. I just heard him.
Exactly. Given.
And
then Chris Charlton. He's so mad at Carl Anderson.
Yeah.
As he should be. I'm mad at Carl Anderson. Yeah. But Chris Charlton basically was all of us. And he did not hold back. Like he just laid into him. Yeah. And Kevin just let him go. Like Kevin was like, yo, I agree. And he didn't impede Chris. He just let Chris go. And because I think he knows a lot of people feel the same way about the Carl Anderson situation, but it's almost like a breath of fresh air because they're not subject to I guess I want to say like
they're not being censored.
I mean they obviously have sponsors, but not in the same way where they have to watch their mouths or watch what they say or they can't be seen. Yeah, it's very nice. I love it.
It's amazing. And I love them and they're my favorite. And I mean, I always, and big ups to Excalibur over the last few weeks for elevating his game too. I know I'm like always on the ringside thing, but it is something that interests me and is something that I listen to. And I did like finish both of JR's books and did learn a lot about like ringside information and knowledge. And he is a really smart person to have.
He is
at ringside. And I just like, I don't know. There's a spot for him, but I think it's part of, you know what I think it is that I think that is another piece of Tony's poor management style in this company. But in my opinion, poor management style in this company.
What do you mean?
In terms of like, where like a lot of the stuff with the CM Punk situation could have been avoided.
Absolutely.
The writing but I meant,
of course. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things, but I meant like commentary wise, like what?
But I mean, I guess is that if Tony had a handle on like what his vision was, he would be able to place JR in a proper spot in the hierarchy of, because JR's good at scouting talent and he's good at. he's good at teaching people. I think he'd be great at teaching people how to do broadcasting.
Well, and that was the whole reason they put him with Excalibur, was to get Excalibur, because Excalibur was PWG for so long.
Right.
And they needed to get him TV wise. So yeah, like that, I completely, network. Like, so I totally get putting JR, especially in the first year or two of the company. Like, and of course you have Tony Schiavone, who's there because he's nostalgic, and not that he's bad at his job or anything. I don't mean that. I mean, but he's nostalgia, and people love hearing his voice. And like, I never realized how much I missed him until he was back.
Yeah.
And like, and occasionally, like sometimes I would, when he was doing announcing for the Gwinnett Braves, I would, every once in a while, I would hear him like talking, and it would just like bring stuff back. And I didn't really realize how much I missed him and listening to him. And then, I enjoy it. Like, I get why they've had it, but they've, I think, evolved to the point where JR, and like we've talked about it, how they've moved JR to like the 9 o'clock hour and things like that, which I think is smart. So maybe they are eventually phasing him out, or phasing him not out, but into other areas,
something that he can. And I know that, I mean, from reading those things, it's like, it's tough because it's one of those things where even he knows, I think deep down in his heart, because he's written it down on paper, that everybody has to hang him up sooner or later. Like we all get to a place where whatever, especially in this kind of environment where we have to leave our boots in the ring and, turn the microphone off and take down the ring and move on. And I'm not saying that he's anywhere close to that position, because I don't think that would be right either. No. But I think that him relinquishing the broadcast time, I mean, it has to be hard for him. I know that.
Well, especially because the company is still fairly new. And so it's probably reinvigorated him because it's more exciting. It's new wrestlers that he hasn't called before. It is some wrestlers he's called before in a different aspect of their career. So like, there's all these new things for him. So
but I just think he's a product of his past.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And there's just like every single one of us is that at some point in our lives, because of how our environment is and all of the things that and then like time goes, it just steps past us because we're just human, and it's and that, you know what I mean? And I think we're in that phase, and I think they're doing the right thing with him. I mean, it's not doing anything for Rampage, but that's not JR's fault. That's the presentation.
No, Rampage has too much going on the booth, and they've got to get that. That needs to be a 2-man booth, and they should.
The only thing good about Rampage this week was Orange Cassidy having his own microphone, and like,
oh my god, that was great. I enjoyed like the matches. I thought I loved Bandito versus Roosh.
Yeah, you're right. Those two are always going to do it.
Those are definitely two. And I am really happy to see. I wish that Lee Johnson was not with the Factory, but I'm glad to see Lee Johnson on TV. One thing that I really I don't, because they've hinted at it some more, but I don't know how close people are following along to what's going on with Danhausen. Because he's showing little tendencies of being more aggressive and being very evil, and not.
He did say he was going to rip somebody's teeth out.
Well, Tuesday on, no, I take that back. I believe it was, was it Monday on Elevation? I think it was Tuesday on Dark. I had not watched Dark yet, but somebody sent me a GIF of it, and then I found the video. The Factory was the Factory. No, were they the main event? I don't know. The Factory had a match, and it was QT and Cole Carter and I think Nick Camarado. And they wrestled like Rhett Titus, Cheeseburger, and Logan LaRue. And so, of course, the Factory won. And then a video came up, and it was black and white. It was distorted. And there were 2 really long nails. And then one started getting pulled towards the person. And then it the screen kind of went fuzzy again, and then they cut back to the Factory. And so some people thought Darby Allin, because of the whole Cole Carter dressing up as Sting and that kind of thing, and it kind of felt like his vibe, but it also kind of had a bit of a House of Black vibe, but I didn't think it was them. And so then I started, because I was writing about it, and I started kind of looking around. Like, I had seen some references in the comments to Danhausen, because prior to what we know him as now, he was very evil. He had different face paint, and he used to carry a very long spike. And then I noticed, and then I had remembered that he tweeted like the week before he lost to QT, and he was mad about, and he quote tweeted it about with something, and then he's quote tweeted with song lyrics, and then like the next night he won, and it was very aggressive. He beat Serpentico, and it was it was John Cruz, and he beat him. It was like a really aggressive side of him. So there's clearly something going on with Danhausen, and I'm really interested in seeing if they're bringing in apparently this version of Danhausen that I haven't seen, but from what people who have seen it say it's really good. I just don't know why QT is the foil for it. I don't understand. I'm like, everybody in
maybe because we all hate him so much.
I guess so. But then so Friday night, QT he did a pile driver to Danhausen on the steps, and so some people are wondering if that's going to be kind of like he hit his head, and so now he's going to be this evil character, so I think that's really interesting, and I'm glad to see Danhausen kind of getting some more stuff in. I just don't really like the fact
where they're going.
That it's QT.
Yeah.
There's literally anybody else that it could have been, and I don't really know why it's QT. It's just like, why is it, or anybody from the factory for who they've got. I mean, now I guess they could do the Lee Johnson stuff, but Lee has just joined them, and so it's like it's kind of new. So I don't know, maybe he'll go through each member of the factory. Maybe he's starting with QT, and then he's gonna work his way through, because there's like 98 members of the factory, like they're NWO. So maybe they'll just bring in more factory students, and Danhausen will just attack them all.
No.
I don't really know where they're going. So on the one hand, I'm really excited and like really interested in what they're doing with Danhausen, but then on the other hand, I'm like, why is it QT? Like, out of everybody on the roster, that's who you picked to do this with. So
yeah. I can't. I mean, I have nothing to add to that. I completely agree with it. I'm as much disdain for QT in the factory as you. So it's like, anybody, please. There's so many other choices here.
Well, and that's why I like when we were at the New Japan show, and like we got Shota, and it turns out it was just because he was challenging for the next set of tapings, but it was QT. I was like, why are you giving Shooter to QT? Like, when you're in New Japan Strong, you have this guy
must have something on people.
I mean, he's very, like, I will give it to, like, QT is very good at training people. He's very, like, he's a very solid, like, he's a very solid wrestler. I just don't understand why he's getting all the TV time.
They only have 3 hours of television a week, though.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And why is he getting like? I don't mind him on.
Put him on the YouTube show. I'm sorry.
He is. He's there because I watch, so I see him all the time.
Okay, but and I don't mean bash everyone over the head with him on the YouTube.
Yeah,
show.
He competes often, and then of course when if he's not in it, he's obviously out there with the factory all the time and things like that. And so, what's
the point of having a faction of like all these younger wrestlers if you're going to be the one that's wrestling all the time?
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. And so, like, and then like they had, and I don't.
You just made me realize, like, I'm even madder because I'm like, he has all these, like, you're right. There's like 9 million of them. So let them fight.
Yeah. Like, and Anthony Ogogo, because Anthony Ogogo is always complaining about how he doesn't get TV time or get sub, but QT always gets. He never complains. I mean, he never says it's because QT gets time. But Anthony Ogogo frequently says, "I never get on TV. I don't get this, and I'm not on Dark." And sometimes he is with the factory, and he's just there. They don't use him, and then sometimes he'll have matches, and his matches are usually squashes. They last like 3 minutes, so things like that. But I'm like, he has a point when QT's getting all these matches, but Anthony Ogogo, like, he needs to improve in the ring, and he's not going to improve when QT gets all the matches. So I think that's just what annoys me. And then of course the whole QT comment about women, just that's what I think of when I see him, and so it just makes me irritated when I see him. And so now so on the one hand I'm like, yes, Danhausen, murder him, but on the other hand, let Danhausen do this with somebody else, because dig with people who are actually like, and I enjoy that some of it is coming to fruition more on Dark, because I watch Dark, But and I guess that's kind of why they went with the factory, because that's where the factory is a lot of times.
I think that the Boom would argue that what do they call them, Dave and Busters, or I love all the different names they come up with for Truth. It's Truth Busters, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that would even make more sense, because the Truth Busters.
How about them?
New. Yeah,
because that would they brought them out and they actually got over, it seemed like, and then we can
and then
they did like 1 or 2 matches and then they just disappeared.
They've been back on Dark. That's
Dark thing. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't
they've been on Dark, but it's mostly Ari, which is fine, because Ari is he's a very good wrestler. He's a very good wrestler. Yeah, but they brought Sunnie Kiss in, and they're doing a lot of the same shit they were doing with Sunnie before, which is they're not using her. Okay. Danhausen and Sunnie Kiss, like, I would enjoy that. Like,
that'd be fun.
That would be great. I mean, even Danhausen and Ari would be fine. I mean, they could do, if they wanted to do stuff with Slim J and maybe Parker, they're still, like, I can tell, I guess, because he's so new, they're using him some, but not as much. Like, it's definitely Ari's faction and he's in it a lot, and they are using what do they call him, Jeeves? I think they call him VS Jeeves. They are using him some, and VSK was like, he did a lot of stuff on the indies, and VSK has been an Impact so like they should use him more. But that faction would make more sense than using Danhausen with the factory. Like, you should, if you're trying to get Trustbusters over, especially if they're gonna be an ROH thing, then put Danhausen, let him. Now, I don't want Danhausen on Ring of Honor. Danhausen needs to be on TV, but I think that that would make sense to build them up before you go to streaming or TV or whatever the hell the deal is going to end up being. Then build some stuff up on that side. Don't use it on the factory.
Yeah. Don't use it on the factory. All right, let's talk about Saraya and her interview on the sessions.
Yeah, so I listened to because the sessions I have started covering for SE Scoops, and so Saraya was on there, and she was talking about, like, she went through her journey of how she got cleared, and like, so when she signed with AEW, she was not cleared. She didn't really know what she was going to be doing other than helping the women's division. And so she was like, I'm excited about that because they're so new and they have really good women. They just kind of need some help with being on TV. She's like, they need their identity, basically. She's like, they're only, because Renee was like, yeah, they're only 3 years old. Like, it's going to take some time. And so she was like, that was part of the reason, that was part of her appeal to coming to AEW in the first place, was because she was like, in WWE, I don't know where I would fit in because they have a solid women's division. And she was like, and I can't really help them in the way that I can help AEW, because she's like, I've been on TV, I've done all these different things. And so I can give a different perspective, than, I could in WWE. And so she was saying that was part of it. And then a lot of it was her freedom, to do her Twitch. She was like, I have freedom to do things and I don't have to give a percentage of that to AEW. And she was like, of course, she was like, I can say, like, so if I'm doing a specific TV appearance, I will just say, hey, I'm doing this appearance. This is what we're going to talk about. She's like, because it's a good business move to just tell them what I'm going to be talking about. But she was like, I don't think they would be like, no, you can't do that. And so,
right.
So that was kind of like where she was talking about. And so what inspired her to get cleared in the first place was she saw Stone Cold and Kevin Owens, and she was like, and he wasn't taking big bumps or anything. And she was like, if I had one more match, I could do something like that, like where I don't have to do anything crazy.
As you're doing it with someone that's responsible, you can actually have a match that won't kill you.
Right, exactly. So she said she took the idea to Tony, and Tony was like, well, when Steen came back, we put him in tag matches to kind of get him back into things and to protect him. And she was like, well, if I'm going to do this, like if I'm going to have one more match, it needs to be one-on-one. I don't want to do a tag. So he was like, well, you have to be cleared. Like, that's the thing. And so she said she didn't want a doctor in wrestling because they're biased. And she said she doesn't want them, because she said that's kind of what happened before, is they cleared her. She said, I was doing all these crazy things and I shouldn't have been. And so she was like, I want a doctor who is going to tell me, like, no, do not get in the ring if he thinks I don't need to. So she went to a doctor in California who has worked with, like, NBA athletes, NFL athletes, people who are stunt doubles and things like that. And she was like, has a very good reputation. And basically, like, if he thought I couldn't compete, he would have said no, because she's like, his reputation's on the line. Because if I go wrestle and I get injured,
he has all those infamous clientele, right? It is not in his best interest to be wantonly clearing.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that that still counts. Those are neurologists.
Yeah.
I had a funny learned by thing, because Bob had a back surgery at one point. It was like, well, actually, and it made total sense once someone said it to me, because your neck and brain stem and all that stuff, they're all connected. So it's actually neurologists who handle back stuff and like in the deep dive stuff, not initial, but I always found that so fascinating. And it's like, especially a neurologist in that field with that level of, and good for her, because I mean,
and because she said a lot of people were wrong because they thought Doc Samson was the one to clear her, and she was like, he didn't approve me for
just
anything.
An assumption. I've never read that anywhere.
She even said that when her and Britt first got physical the first time, like where they were just kind of swinging at each other, she's like, I didn't get clearance for him to do that. She's like, me and Britt just kind of did it.
Ooh, she went Shibata. She went business for herself.
So then I think that
she was inspired. I think this is what's happening here. This is probably what Shibata's feels are too here. He's coming back. All these people, Bryan Danielson,
Edge,
Stone Cold, Edge. I mean, I think we finally reached a point where we have responsible wrestlers in the ring. Yeah. Like the Kevin Owens thing. When you because like, I'm not even a WWE fan, but it's undeniable. The guy is a great wrestler and a responsible, safe, smart wrestler. So, I mean, and you've seen the Japanese doing this forever. Like, he's 70, that's like 72-year-old guys doing the freaking anniversary shows all the time. Right. And they got like Zack Sabre. I mean, it must have been a giant, honestly, because when Shibata did that with Zack, but it must have been a giant compliment to Zack that he was like, I want this guy because he is
gonna protect me.
Like has the body control and the and Zack is like remarkable. He's one of my favorite technical.
Me too. Yeah, I love Zack.
It's sometimes you're watching and you're just like, how the F did he just do
and I say that all the time about Zack Sabre Jr. matches, because I was like, not that they're all the same, but like we know what to expect, but I'm still impressed by him every time. And I've been watching him for several years now, and I watched him on the indies. Like I saw him in person, like I've seen him wrestle like on the indies a couple of times before. And so, and I'm still just, I'm amazed with him every single time. Like there's always something that he does, and I'm just like, can't believe he's doing that. Or I can't believe, like, he's so good. And and I'm a huge fan of his. But like you said, it's a huge responsibility.
To bring it kind of back to Saraya is to say that like the person that has to take care of her in the ring.
Yeah. And so she saw this doctor, and he was like, okay, well, your x-rays look good, but you need a CT and you need an MRI. And she had said in the past she had x-rays, but she had not done the MRIs just because she didn't think, I guess either they wouldn't clear the MRIs, or she had x-rays and she knew she had fluid on her neck. Right. So she was really afraid to do anything. So he did the x-rays, and then he sent her down. She's like, they had some openings. So I went downstairs. I went to get a CT. I went across the street, had an MRI, and within an hour, I took all the results back to him, and he was like, you're cleared. And she was like, what? And she started crying, and this happened on Halloween. So that's how recently she was cleared. Wow. She was fully cleared on Halloween. And so she said, like, she's like, well, what about the fluid in my neck? And he was like, you have fluid in your neck. There's no fractures above or below the neck. He was like, and she was like, well, what about paralysis? She said that was the biggest thing she was afraid of. And he said, paralysis is very rare. He was like, of course it can happen. He was like, I don't think that it will. And he was like, she knows what her limitations are. There's certain things she can do and there's things she can't do. So she's well aware of that. She's like, I'm very aware. And he's like, your body. So if you start not feeling great, then just take some time off from wrestling. And so she basically said that she got her neck healed in 5 years. And she was like, that's just crazy. And so, and what I thought was really cool, one of the first things that she did was she texted Sasha Banks to tell her, because a lot of people, because Saraya will say that incident, because so back for people who may have forgotten, in 2017 they were doing the house show in Long Island, and Mercedes and Sasha were in the ring, or Sasha and Saraya rather were in the ring, and she was kicked in the back of the head, and it gave her a mild stinger, and Saraya she couldn't move her extremities, and she had to be stretchered out. And Saraya has always taken responsibility. She was like, I shouldn't have been in the ring. There are certain things I shouldn't have done. And she said people still tweet Sasha and tell her that she ended like, how dare you end somebody's career? But people still, but she said Sasha fans will tweet her and say, I'm glad that Sasha ended your career. Like she said, people to this day still tweet both of them. Wow. And so she said that she knows mentally that can mess with people's heads. And so she wanted to text Sasha and just be like, I just don't want you to feel bad anymore. Like this was, and she was like, it was never her fault to begin with. And I never wanted her to feel bad, but she was like, I'm cleared and I can wrestle. And she said that Sasha was just like over the moon for her. And so she said it was, and so I thought that was really cool that she said that's other than like, she called her parents and she texted Renee, because her and Renee are like best friends. And so she said, and then Sasha was like one of the first people she texted.
That's
and so
amazing.
Yeah. And so she was talking about so she talked about that. And so about getting cleared. And so of course, then she moved on and she was talking about like the first promo back, the one that ended up going off the rails. And, you and I tried to remind people, like, she hasn't done this in a really long time. Like it was not a good promo, but on the other hand, it was like not the end of the world. And
7 years.
Yeah. And she's like, and Renee was even like, when you were a GM, you didn't regularly cut promos.
Yeah, cut promos.
Week. Yeah. And she was like, because Saraya was saying, she was like, I fucked up. And Renee was like, you didn't. She's like, the promo, you had issues, but she's like, you didn't say anything wrong or anything like that. And she was like, as soon as I got out there, she said the nerves hit me, which is something you and I talked about. I was like, I think she was nervous and it just hit her. And that's,
you don't know how people are going to react when you go out there. You don't know that you're going to get the good kind of heat and that people are going to be as excited as I mean, and there were a lot of people who were like, man, because there's this.
Yeah, I mean the promo was not great, and we talked about that. She admitted it, and it was bad. And she said, and she talked about, she was like, in WWE, it's scripted. I have parameters, and she was like, here they just throw you into the deep end, and there you just sink or swim. And she was like, and that was another thing. She was like, so it was all these combinations of things. And she said that she made the mistake of reading social media afterwards, and she said people acted like she was like, they acted like I killed their dog or something. She was like, it was just a promo. But she says she won't check social media now because of it. She's like, she's like, I haven't had that level of toxicity in my life because I've been away from wrestling. And she's like, you kind of build your communities and things like that. And so she was like, I haven't seen that level. And she was like, and she said, people are WWE fans that are anti AEW. She was like, you're basically dead to them. And she's like, and they let you know. And she was like, there have been some really brutal WWE fans that she was like, they basically wipe out everything I did in WWE because I'm now with another company. And she was like,
somewhere.
Yeah. And so she was talking about, but so then she talked about working with, so she talked about working with Britt, and she actually was very complimentary of Britt. She was like, Britt, she was like, Britt doesn't get the flowers that she deserves, because she said, before AEW, Britt was on the indies. And so she didn't have she had no TV experience whatsoever. And she was like, and they just threw her in too. And she was like, and we saw, and you and I have talked about it many times about how the AEW promos, some of her early promos.
I never thought I would ever care.
Yeah.
I never thought I would ever care about Britt Baker. She got that, when she won that, most improved award.
Yeah.
From Observer and so forth. After all that, it was there's no question. It was undeniable.
It was night and day difference. And that's what she was saying. She was like, and then she was talking about how Britt has done all these things.
But it took time.
And exactly. And she was talking about how she's done she's done still cage matches. She's done a lights out match. She's done all these firsts, but people don't give her the credit for it. And she was just like, and so it was really interesting because I listened to this the morning after the promo from this past week, which was better than the first promo. She seemed more comfortable, but then you could tell she was getting emotional, and which is completely understandable, especially when she's talking about certain things. There are certain things about the promo I did not like. I didn't like the be a star crap, and I didn't like, some of that stuff. And I didn't like her telling Britt that she's like, what have you ever done? I've wrestled here, here, and here. And she said she wrestled in the Tokyo Dome, and it turns out she did not wrestle in the Tokyo Dome. She has wrestled in Japan, but it was not at the Tokyo Dome. And so people were like, why are you lying? So I was like, oh boy. So it was, but yeah, so I didn't like that type of stuff. But so it's really interesting hearing her, especially because she's supposed to be the baby face here. And she's saying like, that Britt's never done these things. But then I listened to Renee the next morning, and she's putting over Britt and talking about how great Britt is, and she enjoys work. She really wanted to work with her, and this is her division, and she's worked very hard in AEW, especially for such a new company. So it was just interesting to hear the two things. And yeah, so that promo was, but then it got better. Like towards the end, she started really bringing it home. And it was really like when she's talking about, she battled her drug addiction publicly. And I was like, I mean, Britt, what is Britt going to say to that? Like, you can't, and you could see the look on Britt's face when she said it. And so some of it, I think she just kind of, because again, they're not scripted. She was like, I don't really know what I'm going to say. I just kind of go out there. And so I think it probably just came out as she was going, and hopefully she'll rein it back in some and realize like, please don't put down the company you work for.
Yeah, and she's not the only one that's guilty of that.
Oh,
so
no.
That's totally like, anytime that this is not the time to be like peeing on your own company.
Right. Yeah, and I think some of it is maybe just WWE
but
brain.
It's the brain.
Because
I think
it's WWE brain, and she goes.
If we have it, they definitely have.
Yeah, right. Because that's where she was for so long, for so much of her career. Coming to America, she was NXT. She was NXT for years. She was WWE
went to the
for
Performance
years.
Center. She ran the WWE brand of wrestling.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm gonna cut her some slack a little, let her get her feet under her. It's gonna take her some time, and she hasn't done this for a while. So that's why, again, was not a fan of a lot of what she said, but I know that she is trying to kind of get her feet under her. And then because she did the whole thing, and she's an ungrateful bitch, and I was like, do we have to go with these tired tropes again? Like, that's definitely a WWE thing. I mean, well, not just WWE. That's pretty much everywhere. That's the other woman opponent is always a bitch, and it's always like those lazy tropes. And I was like, so I know it's going to take her some time to get out of WWE brain. So I think we're going to get there. And I think, but yeah, so the interview was really interesting. And she did say one of her main things is she was like, the women need more time and they need stories.
What?
And she was like, and that's my goal, besides being able to compete again. She was like, my goal. And she was like, that's why I kind of started talking about the revolution, because she was like, my point was, we need to push the women forward. There's so many good women back here. And she was like, and it was funny because she was talking about how all the women have been really nice to her and Renee. And she was like, and so you hear about all this drama, and she was like, but I'm not seeing it. And she was like, and Renee was like, but she's like, she was like, no, it's not that as bad as it's being blown out of proportion. But she was like, it's everywhere. She's like, when you spend all this time with these people day in and day out, she was like, there gonna be arguments, there's gonna be blow ups. And she was like, especially with a lot of
it's work.
Yeah, exactly.
You're in a workplace.
Yeah. And she was like, and yeah, you are competing for spots and TV time and things like that. So, it's going to happen. But, so Paige or Saraya was saying, so far, everybody in the locker room has been really great to her. And she's like, they've been great to Renee. And she was like, so far it's been, really good. And so she was really complimentary of the women. And she was like, there are good women. And she was like, we just have to get them. They need an identity. we've got like, basically she was like, we have the tools and the assets, we just have to put it all together. And so, you hope with, and she was like, that's why I'm here. That's why Madison is here. She was like, it's to help, guide these women and help them get stories. And she was like, and I meant to go back and listen to the podcast before today, so I could get the exact quote, and I forgot because I've been busy the last couple of days. But she mentioned that her and Britt were only supposed to get like 2 or 3 minutes, and they went over and they just took over and they got more time because they just didn't go.
They just basically, that's what the men do.
And she said she was like, it reminded me of the Give a Divas a Chance. She's like, yeah, because she's like, she's like, I had to do this she's like, I did this with the Bellas. I did it with Emma.
Yeah.
Like we were only given like 2 to 3 minutes. And so we had to go out there and we would just kind of take over. So I don't think she
Becky Lynch. The man.
Yeah, exactly. So
WrestleMania 35.
I didn't time Wednesday's segment, but I looked at the clock. So the music started at 8:50 and they got a full, between both entrances and their in-ring segment, they got an entire 10 minutes. So I don't know if that's what she was talking about, that they were only given a couple minutes and they went over, or if she's talking about the first thing that they did, the first like segment where she came out there and she talked to Britt, and she said that it was really hard because she came out there and she was like, I couldn't find hard cam, and she's like, you can kind of see me looking around, and she's like, and then she's like, where the hell are Tony and Athena? And then she was like, oh, there she is. And she found them, and so she was like, and that kind of led into stuff too, because she's like, I'm trying to find like where hard cam is and find where my spots are. And then she was saying that like, when she came out on Rampage, when she debuted, nobody knew she was there except Jericho, obviously Tony. Renee knew, and she said they kept her in a room with, she said it was really hot, there was no bathroom. Renee had to go get her some food because they were, and she said she had glasses on and like a hoodie, and she's like, I saw Neville, and then she's like, well, Pac, and she was like, and I started to say hey to him, and she said the security guard pushed her head down and made her keep walking, and she said Pac looked around like, did y'all just see that? And so she said like none of the women knew, and she said Britt knew like at the last minute. Britt was like, well, are you here or not? Because she said she was like, because she's like, not that I don't trust people, but I didn't want it getting out, because she was like, that's the old saying, telephone, tell a wrestler,
telegraph, tell a wrestler.
She's like, wrestlers will tell somebody else and then it spreads. And so she was like, so they were talking about how she hid in a room until basically the last minute, and then she came out and she said like, bring the girls out. So then like, so all the women that ended up coming out that night, they didn't know that Saraya was there until right before they went out. And like, and so she said, then she was saying that was like another reason like she wanted to come there, is because like she was like, Tony Storm is here, and she was like, Jamie Hayter is here. She was like, I've never wrestled Jamie Hayter before. She's fantastic. She's like, Athena is here. Ruby Soho is here. She's like, so all these women are here. And she was like, I want to be able to potentially work with them, one day. And so she was saying that they told her to take it slow as far as like how many matches she has. They were like, have the first one and then just kind of gradually build up. Like, she doesn't sound like she can have multiple matches a month or anything like that. Right. It sounds like they're going to slowly build her back up and get her body used to things. And so, but she was saying that, these are some women that she could potentially face. And like, cause she was like, I want to be here. And she was like, even if I'm not wrestling them, I want to help elevate them. And again, it goes back to TV time and things like that. And so it sounds like even if Saraya isn't going to be, a full-time in-ring competitor, even if she's doing part-time stuff, like it sounds like she has kind of a vision, or just she has ideas of how to get the women more TV time and to get them stories and things like that. And she really wants to drive. It seems like she really cares about them and like wants because she was like, I like AEW and I want them to succeed. And so, having Saraya and having Madison and having Maria, and you have Dustin Rhodes who trains with these women, all the time. It's like, it's just like you said, it takes time to build things up. But then on the other hand, we're going into year 4 and we're still having some issues. And I want to point out, Thursday I watched Impact, and between the two matches that they had 2 women's matches. They got almost 26 minutes of in-ring time.
Wow.
The women the first match was Chelsea versus Mickie James. That lasted about 10 minutes. And then the main event was Jordan versus Giselle, and they got, I want to say 17. Was it 17? Maybe it was 15 minutes. And there was a segment afterwards where Masha came back. So Masha and Jordan had a segment. Then they had some other segments. Yeah. They had some other segments with women. They had Jessica and or the, what do they call them? The not the Dead Dolls. Just blanked on what they call
what you're talking about.
Yeah, but it's Taya, Rosemary, and Jessica. And so they were talking. So they had backstage segments. I was like 26 minutes.
Wow.
Like, that's insane. Like, who gets that? Not AEW, but I was just like, so it's just interesting with this timing of everything else where where Saraya was talking about this stuff and then getting them more TV time. And then the next night I turn on Impact and they're getting, and it's rare. It's rare that they get that much time. They do get, obviously,
they do fairly well, actually.
Yeah, they get.
Impact probably does the best job out of everybody.
Yeah, they do.
And
even the weeks where they have one match, they generally get 10 minutes. It's really rare that they get under 10 minutes even if it's one women's match. There have been shows here and there where they've had no women's matches, but that's really rare that happens. And then like the women main evented. It was Jordan versus Giselle. Like they're really good. But yeah, so I was like, and look at Impact gets 2 hours. I mean, yes, they pre-tape in advance, but they get 2 hours, and that 2 hours, 26 minutes of in-ring time was women. And so I was like, it is possible.
Well, it is possible. WWE is doing it. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
And yes, I keep getting stuck watching WWE, so I keep seeing these things, and they're doing. I think that in terms of actual in-ring wrestling, I think that obviously Impact is going to have the superior.
And they have for a while. As long as I've been timing
both
matches.
Of those promotions are able to promote their women's divisions effectively, it seems like. So it must be possible.
Must be. Some Gail Kim has figured it out.
Somebody knows it.
Yeah, somebody.
Actually, you know what? Speaking of Impact, before we move on from there, speaking of Impact, Brace for Impact is about to have their 100th show this coming Thursday. So from when this drops. And we'd like to say congratulations to them. But I know that they are planning a show, so you guys should check that out.
Please do. Yeah, and BFI.
They go on right after Impact on Thursday nights, right? Yeah. Yes. Love JD and Mike.
They're great. BFI is one of the most popular shows, I think, on the page.
Yeah, they sure are.
They're killing it. Even their video clips are killing it, and those are some good dudes. And so,
that's just fine with us.
Yeah, and speaking of Patreon, you can subscribe for just $5 a month, and you can hear the Impact show. You can hear Brace for Impact and all kinds of. There's MMA stuff, and there's Joshi wrestling, which I got to see some last night. There's all kinds of good stuff on.
It's only $5 a month.
Yeah.
We were channeling James McDaniel there. I think it was the guys on the Dynamite show too were shouting out how good he is at it, and they may have been talking about it a little bit, but James is definitely the top guy for pitching the Patreon. He is some.
They should just have him. They should just record him talking about it, and like they do on
radio. Then we can all play James when
exactly.
we want to randomly, like on sports shows.
And just put it in, or like the.
You know what? I don't think, because I think we should all practice our promos on pitching the Patreon Facebook or the Fight Game Media.
We need a Patreon pitching class.
Last lesson, and so we're all gonna look to James McDaniel.
We're gonna watch his promos like they make wrestlers watch promos. We're gonna watch James, and then we're gonna learn.
We're gonna learn how to segue flawlessly into a pitch for the $5 a month Fight Game Media Patreon, which is actually well worth it. And
yes, it is.
I mean, I'm talking about shows I watch, and I paid for the Patreon too because I love it, and also it just kind of goes back into all of us doing what we do and enjoying it. And I got to give a big shout out to Ryan Frederick because I'm not a UFC fan at current. I have been in the past. I don't follow it, but it's still on the Observer stuff, and he has made it interesting for me to read and listen to again, and I appreciate that, Ryan. So
that's some good work.
No, and it's nothing against Dave. It's not anything like that. It's just that because there's something about the way that he talks about the excitement that he talks about the UFC for makes me want, like, it re-engages me where I kind of like it, just like with any sports talk where you kind of like zone in and out on the things that you want to listen to.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, I don't care about the pickleball team, but I care about the whatever all else team. So I appreciate that. But
yes,
I had to give a little bit of a shout.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to give our people shout outs because
we do a lot of good work here.
They do. Absolutely.
This whole place is a lot of fun. It has a lot of awesome people.
Yes. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel too, because we finally got to 2,400 subscribers. And so we definitely want to hit that 2,500 subscribers. And there's a lot of content. So if you're not sure about Patreon yet, then I would recommend going to our YouTube page because there's clips from every show every week. And so you can kind of listen and see what you're into. And maybe that'll help you decide to subscribe because there's a lot of really good free content there. And
you can subscribe to YouTube for free. And it helps us.
Exactly. That definitely. Yeah. Subscriptions, liking the videos helps because that pushes it into the algorithm because, you know, we are constantly fighting an algorithm. So yeah. And then, as we mentioned last week, if you're thinking of leaving Twitter, we are on Instagram. Fight Game Media is actually on Instagram as well, but so are Powerbombshells. And
fortunately, we're all at Powerbombshells and at Fight Game Media, so you could pretty much find our IG and our any other social media that we might be exploring as we watch a live social media apocalypse sort of maybe happening, maybe not happening.
It's pushed me to put all my links in like one place in case I wake up and Twitter no longer exists.
It makes me a bad person that I am actually, and I'm just like sitting there with my popcorn gif. Like,
on the one hand,
like watching Twitter do
on the one hand, well,
all the stuff that everyone that knows anything about the internet could have seen coming.
Yeah, I have him muted and have had him muted for a while, so I find out. But I see people talking about it, and then that's generally how I find out. And then like one of the Slack groups I'm in, that's something we've all kind of been keeping an eye on, and that's actually what pushed me to go.
Important for all of us.
Yeah, because we all use Twitter to promote our stuff, and and we network through through Twitter and things like that.
We talk to each other and get to know each other that way. Like none of us a bunch of us wouldn't know each other if it hadn't been for talking to each other about each other's content.
Yeah, so I made a link tree that has like direct links to where my writing profiles, and then it actually has the link to our playlists on YouTube, so that if happens, and it has a link to our on Podbean as well. So if Twitter disappears one night, I at least have that, and then I'm gonna start working on a portfolio to put a lot of my written work because I needed to do that anyway. The only thing is I've got to figure out what to do about timing matches because I was like, it goes on Twitter, so I don't think I was like, people have approached me about doing a Patreon for it, so I was like, maybe that'll finally push me to do a Patreon.
Interesting. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. And so people are like, why wouldn't we? And I was like, because I don't know if people would pay for it. And they're like, you'll be surprised what people pay for. So I was like, but the thing is, I want to give people a lot of things, though. You have to not give them, but like you want to give giving
you don't just want to make an empty Patreon for no reason.
And so like there's
you want to especially in this economy, be respectful.
Yeah,
exactly. People spending money.
So that's been like one of my biggest things that's held me back from doing it, because I want to offer, like, if people are going to make a commitment to pay a certain amount, like I don't want to just be like taking their money and like not giving them content. Worth. Like I want to give them, they want them to get their money's worth. And so maybe this will make me refocus on that. I did have a few people. They were like, if you make a Patreon, I'll subscribe. So I might have like 3 Patreon subscribers, which that's 3 people I wouldn't have had before. So
that's right.
So that may push me there, but for now I've made the link tree. And so if it disappears overnight, and I use my first and last name, that way people can find it. So it's like, but until then, we'll probably be here until something happens. But yeah, so if you have already left Twitter, or you're going to, we're on Instagram.
And we're on Facebook.
I mean, Instagram's not the greatest either. It has its own issues, but until there's an alternative, where we might, and I've seen people, they're reactivating their Tumblr accounts. I know. Effie's back on Tumblr. One of my fellow writer has.
I'll go find my MySpace.
And, if we ever needed anybody, it's Tom from MySpace.
Yeah, Tom, what the fuck? I thought we were friends.
Yeah. I was like, I know you're living your best life and not coming back to this toxicity, but God, if we needed anybody right now, it's Tom. I will put you in my top 8, Tom. I will make you all 8 spaces.
There you go.
Gonna come to my page, and it's gonna be it'll be 7 Toms and then Powerbombshells. There you go. My space page, or the Fight Game Media. So maybe 6 Toms and then Fight Game Media, Powerbombshells.
Perfect.
And I guess I should do my co-host. So
okay, I mean,
we'll do the top row of Tom.
I wouldn't have been insulted because those other 2 are probably a little more important.
I'll do the top row. The top row will be Tom. Then I'll have you, Powerbombshells, and Fight Game Media, and then like my sister or something.
Cool. Yeah,
round out my top 8.
Excellent. And now it'll pretty much.
Or I'll just rotate the 8th spot out and just rotate it.
Yeah, like if you get in the 8th spot, because all Toms except for that like one special place. Yeah. Every week you have a different person who gets to be the 8th person in your top 8.
Yes.
You're number one. You're number 1 behind Tom.
Yeah.
At number 8.
At number 8, you're right.
That's internet Tom. Math right there.
Some Steiner math.
That is Steiner math, actually. Definitely Steiner. All right, so I didn't see this, but I like got a hint of it. But
yeah.
So what is this I hear about Sarah Logan stealing somebody's gimmick?
So I got home. So Friday night, which I'll get more in depth in the show. So Friday night, I went to a wrestling show at a brewery. Got home, was scanning through Twitter, trying to miss Rampage. I mean, I was going to watch Rampage, but not right that second. And so I was trying to miss Rampage things, and I was just trying to catch up. I was scrolling, and I was like, wait a minute. And I scrolled back, and I was like, this says Sarah Logan returned. And she completely stole Max the Impaler's look. Like
I wish I meant to like get pictures from you. So
I'm sure if you have not left Twitter
machine, which you do because you're watching this, then you can go Google machine it.
Mm-hmm. Or if you're still on Twitter and have not left, then I'm sure you saw all the jokes that people got off this weekend. So she just stole her entire look, down from the hairstyle, and Max has a green braid. Sarah has the green braid. The face paint was exactly the same. Like it literally was a carbon. Like there used to be when E used to have, what is the name? The fashion. What the hell is the name of the show? Joan Rivers was the host and Melissa Rivers was on there with her.
Oh, I know what
they had a segment called "Bitch Stole My Look," and that's literally what this was. That is.
I'm not usually into that stuff, but Joan Rivers was a funny bitch, and
and I typically would not watch it, especially. But that's it. Literally, what I thought of was "Bitch Stole My Look" because that is exactly what happened. And
now, do you think that she did that on her own? Do you think that WWE?
No, I think she did it, and one reason I think that she did do it that way is because Heidi Howitzer, who is Max, they tagged frequently together. Heidi said that Sarah went to Max's hair lady to get the same hairstyle. She sought her out. So, yes, I think Sarah straight up. I think Sarah thought.
What's the impetus for her to do that?
I guess because
she think that no one knows who Max The Impaler is because she's on the indies, and that's
not that she's been. And I was like, she's been in. Sorry, wrong pronoun. Max is pronouns are they them, so I apologize.
Sorry.
Max has been in AEW. They have wrestled on Dark or Elevation like once or twice. They have been frequently in NWA, like recently within like the last few episodes in NWA. They were in TJPW a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, so
they were in Women of Honor when they did that stuff because there is a lot of wrestling. You either wrestle men or women. That's how a lot of it is. And so they made the choice to wrestle women for Women of Honor. So they have been everywhere but WWE basically. And so I guess that was the thought because, Sarah is very into the Viking culture. I think that's where her lineage comes from. Her husband's lineage comes from that. They're doing a lot of the Viking stuff.
That's great. I guess there's tons to choose from. Believe me. My husband read about 10,000 pages on the Vikings last year because he went down a giant clickhole. And I hear many, many, many stories. And there's all kinds of stuff to pull from, folks.
Right.
You don't have to steal anybody's gimmick. There are so many gimmicks in the history of the Vikings.
I mean, literally, if there was ever a reason to use a cease and desist, that would be like that is I've never seen a more
that's
cut.
That's shitty.
It is.
I'm just gonna say it like that.
It is shitty, and what even makes it, I think, even more shitty is she took it from a non-binary person who already has enough issues trying to exist in the world and getting recognition. And then you have a you have a white cisgendered woman who has taken her gimmick or taken their gimmick from them.
That's
and so
gross.
I think that it is gross. And I know people are just, but yeah, that point was made. I saw somebody made that they were like, they took that.
Man.
That's a white woman taking it from a non-binary person. And then you think about it, especially in wrestling, there are not that many non-binary people. And
the acceptance level is still only because of things like, I mean, honestly, maybe Impact a little, but certainly AEW is where you've gotten any real traction with that because they were willing to bring in more than just your average wrestler.
And
ECW is on TV a lot, and they have a lot of different. I mean, they're on Fight TV. They're not on network TV.
But they are, and then there's there's IWTV and subscription streaming services that. So yes, there are a lot more visibility than there has been in previous years.
But still,
but that's also like
that's like
Max has
that's so gross.
It is gross, and Max has such a unique look that like everybody immediately realized like she took that look. But that's almost like because I was thinking of like Abaddon is somebody else who has such a unique look. And Abaddon is also non-binary. Even though their nickname is the Living Dead Girl, their pronouns are they them. And it took a very long time for them to even use the correct pronouns. Excalibur would just say Abaddon and would generally not say she.
Try not to use pronouns.
But other people were still referring to Abaddon as she, her. And then this past week, Paul White and
JR, right?
No, it was because it was on Elevation. It was Paul. Was it Excalibur? No, it was Taz.
I know you tweeted about it.
Yeah, but they did use the correct pronouns for Abaddon. They were using they and their, and I was like, see, it's not that hard. And I know you have to sometimes think about what you're saying, especially in a situation like that. But like they finally got because I've tweeted on and off about it for months about how they were misgendering Abaddon. They were not using the correct terms. And then I noticed where Excalibur would just say Abaddon and just use their name. which also works. And so you see these people, and so Abaddon has such a unique look. Like if you turn on WWE and somebody comes out looking exactly like Abaddon, like you would know that they are straight up stealing that from her. And I don't think it's not a parody situation where like there was China and then WCW had Asia or like the Goldberg Gilbert thing. Like it's not a parody type of thing. Like she's not trying to parody Max. She's just straight up stealing their look. And that is really gross and very problematic. And she deserves all the dragging that she took this weekend because there were quite a few people who were dragging her. And and then just knowing that she went to Max's hair person just solidified. She knew what she was doing because she went.
That's bullshit.
And she has the green, like not only is it the exact same hairstyle, Max has that strand of hair that is green, and Sarah had it too. Like it just, I was really annoyed.
In a world of entertainment and creativity, you should not be taking somebody else's gimmick.
No, and people were getting because Sarah is openly anti-vax, and people were making jokes saying that she was vaccinated against originality.
Yeah,
that was the joke. That was the joke.
There you go.
That was the joke I kept seeing this weekend.
That's what you get, honey.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, she does like exactly. That. She did all the dragging she's receiving. She deserves every
you deserve to get buried for
So it'll be interesting to see like what they do with Sarah on the next. Like, will they make her? She's got the hair, so I don't. It's not obviously very easy.
I don't have a lot of confidence that WWE gives them.
Yeah, so I don't know that they will, if she will change her, or if she'll just be like, I changed my face paint, so now it's not the same. Well, we all know where you got it from. Like we saw the pictures. So.
Okay, Vanilla Ice. Yours goes doon 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 doon, and his goes doon 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 doon.
Yeah, that's really what that.
And if you get that reference, congratulations.
Yes, you have watched Behind the Music.
You won.
you have watched Behind the Music, and you know. My sister and I still talk about
anytime I hear someone say something like that when they steal, that is the like meme that goes into my head. It's Vanilla Ice.
It's a good one.
It's because it's like, dude, we know you stole it. I know a lot of people don't agree about it, but the Pete Satriani versus Coldplay stealing of song was now I'm getting off onto a song tangent. Do you see what this horrible gross behavior has done to me? I've gone like,
well, and then it just shows you how prevalent it is in entertainment, in the pop culture and stuff like that. But so anyway, Sarah stole her look, and she should be dragged for it and should be shamed for it.
Shame Bell.
Yep, she should be shamed for it. And so
I have no sympathy for you. You're getting what you deserve on, and I don't often believe that people should get that, but. If you're gonna open your mouth, you know what? If you're gonna, this is the free speech thing. It's freedom of speech, not freedom from consequence.
Yep. Well, and just that,
and expression too.
Right, and it's not cancel culture; it's accountability.
No, come on.
Cancel culture does not exist. It's being held accountable. It's being accountable for your actions. And if you do stupid stuff like straight up stealing somebody else's look, then the consequences are that you're going to get dragged on Twitter for it. And this podcast.
So she's praying that Twitter goes completely down because she doesn't want to hear it anymore.
She's praying for Twitter.
So Sarah Logan is anti-Elon. Okay, so we figured it out. So she is anti-Elon.
Maybe that's
there you go. That's what we've decided here at Powerbombshells. We have no information directly about this. We can only assume that if you're going to be like that, then you really just want Twitter to go away.
Apparently.
You can't exist on it if you're going to do crap like that. All right, let's see. So we've got next weekend is Full Gear. And we don't know what the network is doing right now because we all haven't really talked about it. But there are rumors of a Boom Goes the Dynamite preview show coming. So look out for that. And that may Well, it will definitely be available on the Fight Game Media Plus Patreon, which is patreon.com/Fight Game Media for those of you on audio. And that's for $5 a month. That, again, is worth every single penny and nickel and
every single coin.
and if you're outside the US, your currency is probably outperforming ours, so it's even cheaper for you.
Might be.
So, I mean,
depends on where they are, though. But
but in general, right now, I think especially a lot of our listeners, it's way cheaper for you.
I think the UK, though.
Well,
they are having.
I'm sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, but for most of you, regardless.
However,
we know in this economy that it's hard to spare extra dollars. But if you can spare extra dollars, then we recommend Patreon for Fight Game Media for sure.
Perfect. Yep.
Yes.
And that we shall see what what is going to go on with Full Gear. Is there?
Definitely make sure you're following us on Twitter because we will post over there, whether it's going to be us or somebody else. We will tweet it.
I know there's going to be previews. I know there's probably going to be live streams. We just haven't kind of like ironed out which person's doing what thing because we all are so
make sure you're subscribed to the Fight Game Media Twitter because they will definitely. I mean, we retweet all of the stuff that comes from Fight Game Media, but you should just follow them too because they are at Fight Game Media, and you will be able to see who is doing what and when. Yes, when is important.
And then so we got to go. Are you looking forward to anything for that, or you just
I'm looking forward to. This is part of it's happening on my birthday, so I will. That's actually part of how I'll be celebrating is by watching Full Gear because that's what I do is watch wrestling. So I will be watching it on my birthday. I'm trying to think. So of course, I definitely am looking forward to MJF and Moxley because this has been an ongoing story, especially because we had, all these times that it's looked like MJF was going to win. And then things have happened both with him and other people. And so this has been a really interesting story. And so I'm really looking forward to the payoff here.
Now, do you think that MJF walks out of the building with the belt?
Yep, and I think the whole stuff with Stoke has been a distraction. I think Stoke and MJF are still working together. I think he will hand him brass knucks, and I think MJF will, because he said he will try his best, and then he's kind of walked it back a little bit. But I think his temper is gonna get the best of him, or his ego will get the best of him, and he will use brass knucks to beat Jon Moxley. That's my prediction. And I don't know if this means Mox finally gets to go on vacation. I hope that's what it means. I hope two things happen. I hope MJF comes out with some freaking snow. So my entire prophecy comes true.
That's right. We need that.
Hopefully in the gray suit, but I need the damn snow. Don't make me wait. Well, I guess
if he wins, he could have like
that's what I was just about to say. He wins, then he will wrestle at Winter is Coming against whoever wins the tournament.
Oh, that's right.
I could get my snow then. So one or the other, I will have.
We got the gray suit. We just haven't had the. We need.
Yeah, we've had pretty much everything else in my dream about MJF coming back has come true. I just it was in the winter time and there needed to be snow. So maybe at Winter is Coming.
Maybe that snow had the ultimate significance in the dream.
Maybe.
And that's why it's taken so long to pay off the snow.
My friends told me
your prophecies are long-term stories.
Apparently. Yeah, my friends were like, why haven't you should have been dreaming about the Elite so that they could have come back fast.
No, I disagree because once it got past a certain point, blowing your wad before the pay-per-view would make no sense in my mind.
Well,
sorry to put it so crudely, but that's
right.
But I mean, the reality is that when you got to like 3 weeks out and they still hadn't come back, it was like,
you might as well
now
save them.
That's pay-per-view. You're gonna have to fork your cash over to see that.
I was hoping that maybe we would get a Halloween BTE out of it, but they are, speaking of filming, they are doing Warner Brothers and AEW are putting out a documentary about AEW, and so they're filming. They've been filming. They're gonna film for a total of 6 weeks, and it started at the Baltimore show. And so they were saying that's probably part of the reason that the Elite have been backstage is because they're there for the filming of things, and obviously because to prepare for their comeback, which I do think is happening. I mean, if there wasn't any more clear thing, it was the we got more disappearing Elite, but had full gear graphics mixed in. So, like, I mean, they pretty much just have to put the words "the Elite" at full. I mean, we'll hear their music, and then what's going to be great is we're going to hear the music, and Brandon Cutler is going to come out. Like he's been doing. They've been sending Cutler out for. Apparently, he's gotten them twice. Like he's been on Dark,
and
the fans have thought that it was going to be the Elite. I'm like, why would the Elite come back on Dark?
Guys, come on.
And then they
listen. I love wrestling as much as the next guy, and I have my like dreams and wishes and hopes. Like,
I mean, how funny would it be for them to come back on Dark, though? That would be fantastic. I'm like, that's what you get for not watching. See,
that would be a big giant middle finger to all of you, or middle scissors to all the people who have been trashing on the YouTube content.
Right, exactly.
Take that, Jeff Hawkins.
But yeah, so it seems like they're coming back, and obviously it seems like it's going to be about Death Triangle, because Death Triangle has been in that's the one they removed the Elite, the Hand, who Matt Hardy says is not him, even though he does have a shirt that says "Delete the Elite." He says it's not him.
You know what? Speaking of merch, just quickly, because that makes me think of something that why is there not a freaking Jake Hager hat, purple bucket hat that says "I love this hat" on it? First, with Jake Hager stuff on it.
I don't think people like Jake Hager enough to buy it. Probably.
I don't know, man. I'd buy that hat. I know, but I feel
free
like
merch ideas. If you're watching the show, anybody from AEW merch, we got you.
That one just seems like it sells itself in my world.
Yeah. Well, what's funny,
whether you like it or not, it does sell itself. True. A hat that says "I love this hat." Come on.
That's printing money.
And then, Jake Hager on.
Yes. So what other matches are happening? Oh, yeah. So obviously, I'm really looking forward to Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's going to be a really, that's going to be a really solid match. I don't know how this. I just need Jamie and Britt to get. I need that story to just happen, because I'm they've got to quit waiting on it. They're either just going to have to do it or just move on and find something else, because they've waited too long. And now we do have Britt and Saraya, but that doesn't mean that, because if Britt and Saraya is first, then Britt something could happen with Britt and Jamie during their match. Like later on, Britt can come do something or get involved or something like that. But I don't know how they're going to get there now that Britt is busy with Saraya. I don't know how they get Britt and Jamie, but we've got to have some payoff from this damn story. It's taken too long. And especially if Saraya is not going to be wrestling very often, like they're going to have to give Britt something to do, because I don't think she's going to have an ongoing feud with Saraya, at least not physically.
Yeah.
So they've got to somehow get back on track with that. And then, of course, we finally are getting Jade versus Nyla. For real.
Although I have been enjoying
that too.
Stolen belt Nyla doing Jade's moves and her poses is pretty darn funny to me.
Yeah, I have really enjoyed it. I was super annoyed that they got 36 seconds on Friday, but I enjoyed that she did Jaded to get the win. And I guess that was part of the reason she did the squash, is because Jade has been doing squashes. So granted, they've been 2 to 3 minutes, but I was annoyed with the time length. But on the other hand, for what Nyla has been doing, it fits with the story. And so now she's finally, I'm interested to see how that finally plays out. I do think Jade retains. I do think, because Jade, if you saw it on our Twitter, on Powerbombshells Twitter, it appears that Jade is booked for Battle of the Belts, because she's on the poster. So it seems like that could potentially be where Jade drops her title, and that would get her to her 50 wins. Most likely she will get to her 1 year as champion. So Battle of the Belts. And if she drops it at Battle of the Belts, whomever wins it could have their first match at Revolution a few weeks later. So that's the plan I see happening. Smart. Is that what Tony is doing? Who knows? Because you never know with Tony in the women's division what they're doing.
No, but that would be smart.
But it seems like Jade is one of the few people that they have booked consistently and booked her, like they seem to have a clear vision of where that's going. Yeah. So I think I do trust them more with Jade because they seem to have, and since the creation of the belt, like it seems like the belt was already coming. They're like, we're putting it on Jade because she is a star. She's white hot. She can be the very first champion. She can make the belt whatever it's going to be, and she can stay undefeated. So it seems like they've got a plan for her. So it seems the logical choice is that she loses that battle of the belts and then whoever wins it. And then it's just who wins it, which would be, is it going to be, will Nyla get a rematch? Will Willow get yet another rematch? And Willow finally be the champion? Will it be Athena? I don't know how long Ruby Soho was supposed to be out from her surgery. So I don't know. Probably not her, probably not Penelope. But hopefully they've got somebody, and hopefully not Britt Baker. I don't think Britt.
I think they can keep her on the other side of things plenty.
Yeah, exactly. So I hopefully they haven't let her leave they haven't really let her leave the AEW women's picture very much. So I don't think she's going for the TBS. So that'll definitely be a topic we talk about in the coming weeks, because it seems like that's really starting to, I know it's kind of dragged some, with the way they've been building it. Nyla's kind of re-energized the storyline. And then now it's kind of giving her that push of like, what happens now? Do we get to the 50? Does she get to 55 wins? Is it 60 wins? She'll probably get to the 1 year mark. Then where does she drop it? And so I think,
I like the 1 year thing that you have made me think it through and more than anything, especially, 50 wins to nothing and all of those things notwithstanding, is that it would completely legitimate, like in terms of legitimizing that belt.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think that you can't, like, it's almost
we're this
borderline close, more legitimate than the actual women's title.
Yeah, because I think she's been over, I haven't done my signer math, but I think she's over 300 days as champion, or closing. If she's not over 300 yet, she should be getting pretty close to it. So yeah, definitely. So she definitely has legitimized that belt, and like we talked about last week, whomever gets it next has also got to make it. Like, this can't be a 2-month title reign. Like, they need, and of course we said last week, it doesn't need to be another year, but it doesn't need to be, they don't need to make it the TNT title where it's a hot potato. Like, I get the point of, like, they want it to be a TV title. It's defended all the time. You could lose it at any time. Like, I get that type of stuff, but then it's just been a mess, and the TNT title doesn't mean what it used to mean. And so they can't let all of Jade's hard work go to waste.
Yeah,
you can't build this title for a year and then hot potato it back and forth.
Yeah.
You've got to build, at least for now, for the next couple of champions, like, you've got to really let people hold on to it, I think. Agreed. So are there any matches that you are looking forward to on this card?
We covered the ones that I am the most. It's a little like scattershot as to exactly what's on the card yet and where it's like going to end up.
Yeah. So there's some random I don't know why are on the card. Like, I have no interest in Sting and Darby Allin versus Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Like, I do not care about that match whatsoever.
I really like Jay Lethal and I really like Darby, and it's great and everything, but I think that is...
Yeah, that match could be
that's where
match.
Boss Tony becomes Fan Tony a little too much.
That could have, I know you're not going to put Jeff Jarrett or Sting on the buy-in, but that's a buy-in level match. And I don't mean that. And because I hate when people talk down about I'm sorry. I think they're a 0 hour now. Buy-in is only for Double or Nothing, but 0 hour. That is a 0 hour match. Sting and Jeff Jarrett might sell some pay-per-views.
Yeah. And you might get some people who were like, whoa, like old hardcore WCW fans that might go, whoa.
Yeah.
So, all right. If it makes the pay-per-view more money, cool. It's not like, it's okay. Meh.
Yeah.
I'm more excited. Especially on this big of a stage. Definitely.
That's a bathroom break. Get your snacks.
Yeah.
Take the dog out real quick.
Because the main event is really...
I do think Sting always does something crazy, so I expect him to do like a code red or go through a table or something, because Sting is out here always. So I'm always impressed with Sting. So Sting I am looking forward to, but the rest of it I don't care about, especially because it's been like a week and a half.
Yeah.
I know what they're doing and I understand it, but I don't necessarily, like, I'm not excited for it. I'm like, all right. I mean, maybe they'll prove me wrong and then I'll talk about it next week and be like, they made me eat my words, but I'm not counting on it.
I wouldn't hold your breath.
I'm not going to. Yeah, definitely not.
Definitely not.
Yeah, and so who knows? Like, so this match is like, this card only has 8 matches for as what I'm looking at right now. I mean, I do think that obviously they'll add the Elite versus Death Triangle, so that'll be a 9th match, but I won't be surprised if something randomly gets added. Then we don't know if the 0 hour matches are. That might be Danhausen versus QT. Maybe.
Yay, my favorite.
Maybe we'll get a Hook match. Hook hasn't really been doing anything.
He just showed up recently again I was like, hey, remember that guy?
Yeah, they were doing Hook and the Trust Busters. So
he took something Friday. He took something away from somebody.
Yeah, he did. What did he do? You can say how well I made it. I was also really tired by the time I started it. So
fair enough.
Like, I do remember Hook being there. And then I remembered somebody was talking about how Danhausen's going to turn evil and then Hook is going to be the only one who can save him from himself or from the dark side of things. So I wouldn't be, Hook and the Trust Busters have been. Maybe we'll finally get Hook versus Sunnie, because Sunnie has said she wants to face Hook. So maybe
that'd be fun.
Maybe they get a buy-in match or something. So I'm sure it's Tony and it's a pay-per-view week, so I'm sure matches will be added next week.
And all kinds of rumors.
We might get some one match we could potentially get, I guess, would be Samoa Joe and Wardlow.
Oh, that's a great point, because
I wondered if they are going to do, if they're going to do Samoa Joe versus Wardlow at Full Gear and then do Samoa Joe versus Powerhouse Hobbs at
Revolution.
No, at
Battle of the Belts. Winter is coming.
The ROH pay-per-view. Why am I
okay.
Final Battle. Thank you. Final Battle.
Battle. That's the only one.
Final Battle. I was like, it starts with an F. And I should know, because one of my favorite wrestling promos ever is when Best Friends cut a promo on Motor City Machine Guns, and it's a mess. It's incoherent. They're just saying random things. They're shouting, and they just leave it like they don't edit. It's so funny, and I still randomly go watch that promo, and Nikki and I quote it all the time. So every time that Final Battle gets near, I always use it as an excuse to post the promo. And so so Final Battle, I'm in, because I kind of thought maybe they would let the Wardlow stuff go a little bit longer and then get to Final Battle. So I don't know because clearly Powerhouse wanted Wardlow, and so I was like, are they gonna do Wardlow versus Samoa Joe first and then let Samoa Joe go to Powerhouse Hobbs, like, because it seems like that would be a Final Battle match, but also it's a story they've been telling on Dynamite, so I can't tell. And they keep obviously booking ROH matches.
They have to, because they don't have ROH TV. So
yes, exactly. So that's what I was thinking, and I'm hoping
be on which card.
Right. And I hope that it seems, I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago. I hope Mercedes has been cleared, because she's been tweeting more often, and she was tweeting about like the last time she had her belt. And then Friday, I think, was it Friday or yesterday, she tweeted, and it was her 22nd wrestling anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was like, I would love to see Mercedes back on TV. So hopefully she's cleared. So I was like, maybe she gets involved somehow with something on Full Gear, or just reminds people that she's there. I don't know. But so yeah, I'm expecting some more ROH related things to happen. Maybe the Kingdom. I guess the Kingdom versus FTR. I don't know that they would hold that off. Maybe that's a Final Battle match, because Final Battle was always one of their bigger pay-per-views. Or maybe they just save it for Revolution.
Maybe.
Because they haven't really done anything. And FTR is kind of doing the stuff with the ass boys. So.
Plus, they're going to be probably doing the Tokyo Dome. I mean.
Right, for Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, they're not. And yeah, I saw some people who were not happy that they weren't in the World Tag League, but I didn't expect them to be in the World.
I didn't either. I don't know who would think that. They're not going to fly to Japan and go to work on Wednesday.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't think they're. Yeah, I saw some people who were mad about it, and I was like, why? Why would you think that FTR was going to be?
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
they're pushing them right now. They've got all other belts.
Yeah, I don't think that's what's going to happen there. So, yeah, I still think that next week they'll add some more matches in. So it'll be interesting because Tony likes to add a bunch of stuff at the end. So, and it took a while to get, as other shows have talked on the Fight Game Media Network have talked about, that took a really long time to get to the card.
Building.
Yeah. The only match that we knew for sure was Mox and MJF, and then Jaden and Nyla became pretty obvious pretty quickly that that's where they were going. And then it just took a while to get there. And then of course we're getting, the Acclaim versus Swerve in Our Glory 3. So I'm wondering if this is where Keith Lee if this is where he turns heel. Because Swerve is already there, and where Keith Lee is just like, screw
Done
it.
with you.
Bye. Yeah, I don't see the Acclaim dropping.
They're way too hot. It would be stupid if they dropped them.
Yeah, so I don't see them dropping.
That'd be dumb.
Yeah, and so I think.
Do you want to get booed at a pay-per-view?
Because it'll happen.
That might be the way to go.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see what gets added this next week, and then what gets saved, because I'm sure there's going to be some stuff that's going to happen on. Sorry to disappear. I need to charge my laptop some because we've been talking.
That's all right. We've been talking for a while anyway.
But that's why I got the charger. That's what the chargers are for. But yeah, and it might come. I had to make sure I had it for the last, not the live stream, but the last pay-per-view recap we did, because I knew we were going to be talking, and I went and got one, and then I found that my laptop actually had come with one, and I didn't realize it. I'd already bought one, and I found it I was like, why does this cord look exactly like the one I bought 2 months ago? I was like, it freaking came with one, and I didn't realize it. I played myself. But now I'm extra prepared. Now I have two.
I have a backup. Just don't lose them both at the same time. God, that's something I would do.
I definitely don't want to do that.
All right. And we had one more thing we wanted to talk about real quick.
Yeah. Are we? Wait, which one?
Are we going to talk about Sunnie?
We can. I didn't know if I was going to talk about any of the show. I mean, we're already.
Oh my gosh, your shows! I forgot. Yeah. You went to wrestling shows.
I did. I went to 3, and so I'll try to make this quick because we're already an hour and a half in. So yeah, I haven't. A lot of the local wrestling has not been happening around here lately. So it was a nice
for the first time, and you got 10 billion shows at once.
I did. So a week ago today, I went to a show at a video game bar. It's called
a barcade.
A barcade, yes. They have pinball machines and old arcade games, and it's a really cool setup. And so they had a show called Pin Brawl.
That's awesome.
It was really cool. It was short. Well, it rained, and so the show it was supposed to start at 3, and it didn't start until 4. And it was 5 matches, and it was really cool because the Palmetto Wrestling Academy is in Columbia, South Carolina, and Ethan Page. Not Ethan Page. But Ethan Case has been wrestling in the Charlotte area for a really long time. I've watched him at PWX for years. He started this wrestling school, and he's got some really talented students. He trains referees there as well.
Awesome.
So this show is basically his students came and they wrestled, and I believe it was also a fundraiser for the academy as well, which was really cool. And so what was even cooler was Anthony Green, who, if you watch 205 Live or Evolve, you're probably very familiar with him. He has been on Dark he's made a few appearances on Dark as well. but he and Ethan have become friends. So Saturday night they had a show in Columbia and Anthony wrestled there. And then the next day he came up to Charlotte and he helped like really put over some of the people. Like the very first match was a tag team match that included a team called the Flex, and one of the members had their very first match the night before. So this was his second match ever, and Anthony Green was in his corner. And there's a guy named Xavier, who I've seen a few times. He's incredible and he's really young. He's like 16, I think. Like it's crazy. And so Anthony like was really cool about putting them over. Anthony wrestled. He got really into it. He stayed out and did stuff like in another match. And then at the end they had a 6-man match, and it was the Flex and Anthony Green, and he just really got into it. He was a heel, and he was like really just getting the crowd involved. Like, and it's somebody like that's somebody who's been in the WWE who does not have to do the things that he did.
Yeah, right.
And I just was really impressed with how he gave back to those students. Awesome. And it was really cool. And I paid like $10 to see. And it was, so it was so much fun. It was a really good time. And so I've talked to some of the people who were involved. It sounds like they're going to do more up in the Charlotte area. And they will primarily use the Palmetto students. I don't know if every show will be a fundraiser for them. It sounds like it could. I'm not clear on, but even still, like it's cool to watch. Like I was talking to one of the guys that are involved, and I was like, it's always cool to see people when they first start out and then watch them. Cause like when I first started going to PWX, Cedric Alexander was there.
Yeah.
And I used to go to a rec center and pay $5 and watch Cedric. And Cedric was always one of the people that Nikki and I were like, if anybody is going to make it to WWE, it's going to be Cedric. Caleb Conley started out there. Caleb, you've seen him as Caleb with a K on Impact. He's been on Dark a few times. He was actually just on Dark last week with AR Fox. And so like there's been a lot of, and like he was not Hangman then. Adam Page I saw very early in his career. He used to come out in a John Deere hat.
So cute.
so I got to watch him. So it's always really cool to see. And like now I'm getting to see, I got to see Savannah Evans. She's currently on Impact. She's with Tasha Steele. So it's always really cool to be able to follow people from the beginning of their journey and watch where, because I got to watch Cedric wrestle at WrestleMania. Like that was probably one of my favorite WrestleMania matches ever, just because I got to watch him. That's somebody that I used to watch when he was like 18 years old, and then I got to see him on WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So it's always really cool to see stuff from the beginning. And so, I'm glad that they have somebody like Palmetto Wrestling Academy who's training these people, especially in this area. So it was really cool. So that was a fun show. Then Friday night, another company that runs in the Charlotte area is called XWW, and apparently they run shows on Roku. I don't know if that's like a regional thing. I assume that it would be. I need to look into that and find out for sure. And so we went mainly because A, it was free, and B, actually the main reason was because our friends were on it. The Revolt wrestled, which is Caleb and Caleb Conley, who I mentioned, and Zane Riley, and Rob Killjoy from the Ugly Ducklings was on the show, which is another reason that Rob Killjoy is somebody I've watched for 5 or 6 years as well, maybe even longer than that. So it's always cool, especially because PWX is not running, so I don't get to see them as often. Right. I did get to see all 3 of them on the GCW show. They were all booked, so that was cool to see. But so that's nice. I feel like there's people I don't get to see the people I used to see every month or every few months, and now I don't get to see them anymore. So
we were I was sitting around yesterday going, I miss going to my wrestling shows. I miss my Knights Columbus Hall. I miss my people.
Yeah, you do. And it's really, especially because like with PWX, I got really spoiled to it because this was a monthly thing. So, and especially because I've been going, this October will be 11 years since I started going to their shows. But then there was a 4-year stretch where up until, because Nikki had back surgery a couple of years ago. And so that kind of put a stop to things for a while. But even before that, there was like a 4-year period where we did not miss a show. So, you get to know these people. A lot of our friends, that's where we would see each other because my friends, we all, yes, we're in group text with each other, but we're all in different parts of the state. Doug and his wife are in South Carolina, and so that was like our one chance to see each other all the time. That's what we planned on. We would be like, I'll see you next month. And like last night, I saw a few of them, and we're like, hopefully I'll see you soon because
right.
we don't have these things. And so, but yeah, so the brewery show was fun. It was enjoyable, and I got to drink and watch wrestling at a brewery. So that was good.
I don't see any issue. There's absolutely nothing negative in that sentence.
No, it was a good show.
And it was free wrestling show at a brewery.
Yeah. And also in the main event, of course we came for the Revolt, who were in the main event, but they were teaming with Lodi of WCW fame.
Wow.
He's the ex-WW champion. And so I will probably do a massive photo dump today probably on my personal Twitter, and then I'll try to get them over to the Powerbombshells Instagram, but I will retweet it from the Powerbombshells account. But I've tried not to take too many pictures because I knew this was going to happen, because I knew I had 3 shows this week, but I did try to get some pictures in, and there's some really funny ones that I got of the Revolt. I would just say that Caleb made it rain.
That's hilarious.
So we have some good pictures of that. But yeah, so that was a fun show. But then last night I got to go to my first ever DPW show, which is Deadlock Pro.
Right.
I'm started
buttload of wrestling.
Yes. So I started out watching Deadlock Pro pretty early on, and then I got behind, and I'm still very behind. A lot of their matches are on YouTube. They do have a Patreon, and that's where they're like pay-per-view. I guess they're technically pay-per-views, but not really, because you buy them through. But they're big they're big events like that. And so, which is what last night was.
They're premium live events.
Yes, the premium live event that they had. A lot of that's on Patreon. So last night I was like, I don't want to go through every match on the card, but I don't want to forget who was on, like what was happening. There were so many good matches last night. And so it was supposed to be our entire group, and then one person has had the flu. Doug was having some stomach issues yesterday, so it ended up, so they unfortunately couldn't make it, but 3 of our other friends were there, and we were all front row together, which was nice. And so it was nice to be able to watch a show with them. But yeah, so there was some really good stuff. There was like I said, I'm trying not to go through the whole card because we've been here forever, but one of the matches was, and another thing, I didn't realize it until the second match last night was a women's match. It was High-End versus Sumi Sakai. And I realized after 3 wrestling shows this week, that was the first women's match I saw in person. There were no women's matches at the arcade, no women's matches at the brewery.
Interesting.
Yes. And so I was like, well, that's a pretty good women's match to get. High-End versus Sumi Sakai. That was a really good match. And High-End was crying afterwards. And then I saw her tweet that was a dream match of hers. Aww. And she told, because Veda Scott had said something to her, and she was like, I started crying mid-match. And I was like, but I noticed because Sumi won, but Sumi was hugging her, and I could tell she was talking to her and then that, I could see that she was crying when she left the ring. But it was a really good match. And then one match that ended up being phenomenal was Adam Priest versus Jackson Drake. And this match was not originally supposed to happen. It was supposed to be Adam Priest in a mystery part in a tag match, and I don't remember off the top of my head who they were supposed to wrestle, but another match was supposed to happen later, was the NDA, which is Patrick Scott and Chance Riser against the Workhorsemen. Patrick Scott had to pull out at the last minute. I believe he's sick. I'm not sure if it's COVID or the flu or what exactly, but he had to pull out last minute. So changed the card, obviously card subject to change. And so we got Adam Priest versus Jackson Drake. I've seen Jackson a few times. Jackson Drake is 18 years old and is very, very good to be be 18 years old. He's I think he's 18. I was thinking 17, but I think somebody last night said he's 18. But regardless, that match ended up
pretty.
Yeah, to be a last minute match, like they just it was really, really good. And Adam Priest, he is a heel and he's a punk. he's very good. And that match was just great. And then so the next match ended up being Workhorsemen versus Mason Miles and Donnie Ray, Mason Miles wrestles a lot in this area. So Donnie Ray I've seen a few times through PWX, and they have built up a following in DPW. And so originally Workhorseman was supposed to be wrestling for the tag team titles last night. That match obviously didn't happen, and they're hoping it will happen at the next show in December. And now I'm like, I hope that show is nearby and where I can go, because I want to see the Workhorsemen win the titles, because And if you've watched the show, you know that I'm a huge fan of Workhorsemen. And then just watching them last night, I was just like, why the hell are they not on TV?
Yeah.
Like, Tony, I know there's limited time, and your tag team division is very deep and very stacked, but there's just no reason that
because we got to get Double J on there with a guitar.
Yeah. Got to get QT and Danhausen. Again, I don't have anything against Danhausen. I love him, but I'm like, and so I'm hoping that my hope, and I was talking to JD Drake last night after the show, because that was somebody I feel like I haven't seen in 9 million years. And he's like, yeah, it's pretty close to it. But we were talking last night, and I was like, I hope that whenever Ring of Honor gets a streaming TV deal, whatever it is, I hope that Workhorsemen is one of the premier tag teams that they put on Ring of Honor, and that you get the belts. And he's like, well, I don't know about that. And I was like, well, I do. So if I was booking a company, I was like, this is what I would do. I would have the titles on you already. he was like, I know. But yeah, so they're just so good, and they need to be on TV. And so and we talked about, because they have on Dark, they wrestled a few weeks ago. They were wrestling Matt Sydal and Dante Martin, and that was a really great match. And Drake was talking about how happy they were with that match, and they really enjoyed working with them. And so it was just another reminder of, I was like, I think I was one time during the match, I said out loud to, I guess, both my sister and my friend who was sitting next to me, I was just like, Tony, what the hell are you doing? Like, why are they not? You have people scissoring on TV, which I don't have an issue with, but then you have the Workhorsemen who could also be on TV. And I was like, I know we're fighting for TV time, but God, find a way to put the Workhorsemen on TV, or hurry up and get your Ring of Honor deal together.
Yeah, that Ring of Honor thing needs to happen.
Yes.
No.
The next match was also I knew it was going to be good. This was a match that was not originally scheduled, but then the whole Patrick Scott being sick kind of added in another match. So we got BK Westbrook and Jay Malachi. BK, I've seen both of them through Pure. When I first saw Malachi, I believe he was 15 when I first saw him, and he was already good at 15. I believe he's 17 now, maybe 18. He's incredible. And BK is very young too. I think maybe his early 20s, but they are just, that match was ended up being one of the best matches of the night. It was just, it was incredible. It was so much fun. It was really, really good. And I was like, that stretch of those 3 matches were just, thank goodness they went to intermission then, because I was like, because I remember, I think it was after the Workhorseman match, because of course JD Drake was chopping the soul out of people, out of like Donnie Ray. I was like, oh, and he chopped somebody, and I saw somebody tweet last night, they're like, his chop sounds like gunshots, which is true. I can confirm they do sound like gunshots.
Wow.
And so I was like, do we get a minute to catch our breath? Because it was just go, go, go. And I was like, I need a minute. So finally, after BK Westbrook and Jay Malachi, they were finally like, we're going to take an intermission. I was like, thank God, I need to, I need a minute to process all of this. And then, so the first match back was another women's match. It was for the women's title. It's Rachel Rose has the title, and she wrestled KZT, which KZT I saw for the first time last year at Mission Pro. And she had only wrestled like 6 or 7 matches. She'd been in a couple blood sport shows, and like, she's from Australia. She quit her day job and moved to the US to become a wrestler. And she was on the Bloodsport show that you and I watched this year. I can't remember who her opponent was off the top of my head, but I really enjoy her. This match, I was a little disappointed in. I don't know if it was just their timing was off, or maybe it was just chemistry, or maybe, I don't know exactly. They couldn't quite get on the same page the whole match. And the crowd was like, at the beginning, they were really into, because Rachel is a heel, and she wears a crown, and so people were chanting "Not my queen" at her, and so like they were really into it at the beginning, and then the match started, and it was just the match. The crowd had a really hard time getting into it. And like, we tried to, try to get like the crowd and like the clap. Cause that's one thing that my sister and I got really good at PWX, is figuring out when it was too quiet, and we would start clapping to kind of get the crowd. And so we do it out of habit all the time. So we were doing it last night, and so were our friends. And they finally, like, it would pick up, but unfortunately, it just, that match, I don't know. It wasn't a bad match. It especially with everything else we had just seen, it was, yeah, I hated that for them because I like them both. But Rachel ended up retaining, and I guess I should have put a spoiler thing up because I don't know, some of these people, some of our viewers might watch DPW. The next match was Andrew Everett versus Mayuki versus May Sura and Bailey and Aki. So May we have seen a lot on Dark, and she's with him, and she's fantastic. She's so much fun. And Bailey and Aki has he also wrestles in Choco Pro, and he has come out with Emmy a few times on Dark. He had a few matches on like Elevation and stuff. And Andrew Everett's somebody I have watched since his very early in his career. He wrestles often. He's like one of the hometown people, I guess you could say, for DPW. And he wrestled in DDT Pro a few months ago. And so that's kind of where the stuff with May started. And because he calls himself a giant, he built himself at 7'4". He's like 6 something, but he's Andrew the Giant Everett. And so their tag team name was the Giant Killers, or were the Giants. And then May and Aki were the Giant Killers. So that match was wild. It was nice to see some intergender matches. It's our intergender wrestling, but that match was a lot of fun. And we were in the front row, and the action came out in front of us for a while, and it was like directly in front of us. And it's like we're gonna get landed on, and it was so much fun. I've got some really good pictures from that one, and so that match was great. And apparently that's May's last match in the US for a while. She's going back to Japan, and she definitely put her all into it. That match was it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. And then what was supposed to be the main event was Emmy Sakura versus Jungle Kiona. It was for the #1 contendership, and I was like, wow, women get to main event at DPW. A North Carolina promotion has women main eventing. What is this? This is unheard of. But that was a really good match. It was the first time I had seen
that sounds like, I mean, those two are great. So
yeah, that was the first time I had seen Jungle Kiona before. And Emmy I was talking to JD Drake afterwards, and he was like, I wish AEW would let Emmy do that, because she would be huge. She would be one of the most popular women, because what we see on Dark and Elevation is just a very tiny, tiny bit of that. She's so good. And clearly, I mean, she's trained Sheeta, and she's trained so many women. So she clearly is just phenomenal at what she does, and it was great to see it in person. And Jungle Kiona was phenomenal too, and it was a lot of, if you like Joshi wrestling, then that match would have been right up your alley. It was really good. And so if you watch DPW, I'm sorry, I'm about to spoil this for you. We'll get
hang on, Brad, here we go.
Yeah, we're gonna need that. We're gonna need that graphic again in a minute. But yeah, so Emmy is the #1 contender for the women's title. And people were chanting, "That's my queen." And so then Rachel came out, and that's, they kind of had their little stare down stuff. And it was funny because Emmy basically laughed in her face. It was so good. And I was like, Emmy's like supposed to be the heel here, I guess. I mean, Rachel is the heel, and I guess Emmy is the baby face, but Emmy had some heel tendencies too, but it was great. That'll be a fun match. So then that was supposed to be the main event. And then Bojack, who, if you've probably heard me talk about Bojack before, if you watch the show, Bojack is somebody else that I love, who is from the Charlotte area. And he has been the DPW champion for a few months. And so his thing was, he was coming to address his haters. And so we all knew it was going to be Lucky Ali, who you've heard me talk about on the show before as well. Lucky won, I can't remember the name of the tournament that they had last month, but he won, and he came out with this gigantic trophy, like that's probably 3 feet tall. And he came out, he brought it with him. And so Lucky has reverted into his hillish ways. He had finally gotten over in the Charlotte area as a babyface because he was a heel for a long time. He caused Darius Lockhart to leave PWX, so he was most hated for a while. Then he won us over and turned into a babyface, and now he's a heel again. But he's very good at being a heel. And so he came, and they were like, well, let's do this now. And then so we were like, are we actually getting this match? Turns into a match. Pop up the spoiler alert again. There's two spoilers here. Yeah, so if you watch DPW, stop watching now because two really big things happened. So the first was Kid Bandit showed up.
No, nice.
Nikki and I lost it because we heard the music, but we couldn't see like past the people. And then like I saw the hair and I was like, oh my God, it's Kid Bandit. And so Nikki and I were like losing it. And so they had what is essentially a briefcase that they could cash in. And so they cashed it in. And so it ended up being Bojack versus Lucky Ali versus Kid Bandit.
Wow.
We did know we were getting this match, and it was
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was an excellent match. It was Kid Bandit got hurt pretty early on, and so spent a lot of time out of the ring. Ended up being a lot of back and forth between Lucky and Bojack, and then unfortunately, Kid Bandit was the one who got the pin. So Lucky pinned Kid Bandit, and Bojack lost their title. So that was nobody was expecting it. That room was dead silent. We were like, what the hell just happened? Like, first of all, you weren't supposed to have this match. Bojack is very beloved. He like it made sense storyline wise from what I've been following. Like it seemed like Lucky would probably win the title eventually, like coming up soon. But I think because nobody was expecting the match. We weren't expecting Bojack to lose. We weren't expecting Kid Bandit to be involved. Lucky pinned Kid Bandit and not Bojack. So Bojack was not pinned to lose his title. And so it was just like very quiet because nobody knew how to. We were like, what the hell just happened? And like people. And obviously Lucky's a heel now. And so everybody's like, and so they were not thrilled about that. Like, I don't think they were like pissed off, but I think it was just like, I can't believe this just happened. And then Bojack and Kid Bandit are dejected sitting in the ring. And so there were some thank you Bojack chants. And then there were just some regular Bojack chants. And then people chanted for Kid Bandit. And then we all just kind of sat like, they're like, is this the end of the show? And then they were like, thank you for coming out to our DPW's first show. And it was just it kind of just sucked the life out of the room, like not in a bad way, but like in a like I don't think nobody was expecting it, and so we were all just like, oh my God, like
that was so surreal, and now I have to process it.
Yeah, exactly. It was definitely like, especially because we were on this super high from Kid Bandit being there. Like first we were on the high from the match even happening in the first place. Then Kid Bandit shows up, and like so everybody was hyped for that. And then Bojack lost his title, and so in like a 15-minute span, like we were just all over the place emotionally. But it was a really, really good show, and I can't wait to go back. I hope DPW. I hope they come back often. I really need to get caught up, and I highly recommend. They're on YouTube, so you can watch their match. They are on Patreon, but they're on YouTube, and there's a ton of really great matches that you can see for free. And they've had so many people, like Luther has wrestled there. I believe Serpentico has wrestled for them. Rosemary versus Andrew Everett was one of the early matches that I saw from them, and that was fantastic. I believe Rosemary's come back a few times. Workhorsemen are there often. There's a lot of really talented people that come through on the DPW show. So I recommend checking them out if you're looking for some new free independent wrestling to watch, especially because there's a lot of Carolina representation, but a lot of people I've watched for the last few years, and it's really cool to see what they're doing now. So definitely recommend them for sure.
Awesome. Sounds like a lot of fun.
It was. Yeah, for sure.
All right. We have one more thing
we do have one more. Sorry to keep you guys here, and I know, thank you for spending your time with us. I know this is one of our longer episodes, but we do have one more thing to talk about. And so some of you have probably seen it if you follow me on social media. I've retweeted some of the stuff from Powerbombshells as well, and I've talked about it in some various places. So on October 23rd, my cousin's daughter, Sunnie, turned 10 years old. and 4 days later, she was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. It's called DIPG. If you look into it, it is very grim. It's not a lot of good information. And so we just have to remember that her doctors are the ones who are treating her, and not that information is incorrect, but every case is different. But DIPG is extremely rare. Only 300 kids a year get it. It is something that only children get. Sunnie was not born with this tumor. It is a cell that mutated. It grew into a tumor, and this happened in a 3-month period, and she is a stage 4. And her prognosis is not great. However, she is seeing one of the doctors that she's seeing at the Levine Children's Hospital did come from St. Jude's. So they have a lot of experience dealing with pediatric cancer. He has recommended Sunnie for a trial, and the goal is to shrink the tumor because of where it's at. It's at the brainstem, so there's just no way to remove it, because if they do, she will lose
her.
Yeah. She will lose her vision, her the ability to speak, to move, all things like that. So it definitely is in the worst possible place it could be, basically. So she last Monday, she went down to Augusta, Georgia, to a children's hospital there. They did a lot of talking about the trial and paperwork and things like that. And so Friday she started her trial treatment. And so the trial consists of immunotherapy, radiation, and oral chemo. I don't know how it works as far as like if they'll do all 3. Like, I'm sure they're going to stagger it out. I don't think all 3 would happen at one time, but I don't know I haven't heard the details of how this works exactly. But I know she started treatment on Friday, but they will be working with her doctors here in Charlotte, so she won't have to keep going to Augusta for treatment. She'll be able to. She lives outside of Charlotte, but it's only like a 30-minute drive or so to the Levine. So it's obviously the closest. That's another reason she's not going to St. Jude's, because she can get this treatment here. Her doctor came from St. Jude. They are collaborating with other doctors for this trial. And so as of right now, Sunnie, she's experiencing some double vision, which she had been having migraines prior to this. That's what they thought she had, because she presented no other symptoms. And so her doctors were treating her migraines. They thought she was having some vision issues, so that she got glasses. And then the week that she was diagnosed, things progressed very quickly. And I will go back and say, so the week that we found out that she had an inoperable tumor, on Friday, she had a procedure that Friday, and they put in a shunt to relieve the fluid on her brain. That has helped with the headaches. She's still experiencing them, but not nearly as bad as before. She's experiencing some double vision here and there, but that seems, at this point, that's the worst of it. It hasn't, so we're hoping, obviously, with treatment starting now, that it's going to keep some of the other symptoms from progressing so quickly. Again, she is a stage 4. So it's hard to say, but the trials, she seems to be, they're trying to keep things as normal as possible for her. She's been having sleepovers with her best friends. She did get to go trick-or-treating. She will not be able to return to school, just because if she gets RSV is really bad this year. So if she were to get the flu or something like that, could make her very sick. So she is not, I think she will be doing virtual stuff once she gets to a certain point. But right now she's not there. They're just trying to keep her just as active as possible and keeping everything normal. She does have a 4-year-old brother. He's trying to kind of figure out what's happening as well. He only knows so much, and Sunnie only knows so much, because this is a very big deal, and that's a lot for a 10-year-old, obviously. So there is a GoFundMe for her, which some of you may have seen me retweet. Mel has
gonna put this.
It. Yes, thank you. So that's my cousin Sunnie, and her current goal is at $50,000. She, on Friday night, she made it to the halfway mark of $25,000. Her parents are not working at this time. They're trying to spend as much time as possible with Sunnie, obviously getting her to her doctor's appointments, because there are a lot of those, and and then they have their 4-year-old son as well. So between the both of them, it's taking a lot out of them, and so that's just to help them out, since they won't be working for the foreseeable future. And then obviously, as expenses rack up with trial experiments, because insurance only covers so much, and they have had to travel, so there's stuff like that. And so the GoFundMe is definitely something to help them. And I do want to thank everybody who has retweeted. Of course, if you've made a donation, I appreciate that. You do not have to, but getting the awareness out there is definitely really important. So I'll continue through my own, of course, through my personal Twitter, but through Powerbombshells as well. I'll be occasionally, I would say occasionally, I'll probably tweet it often.
We'll be both tweeting it, and we'll be making sure. And if anybody's out there that is listening and saw that, just share that with your friends, just to like anything. I mean, it's not even necessarily about money. It's about just maybe,
And I do want to say, if you do want to make a donation, please do not feel like it has to be $20, $25, $50, because I see when you look at the donations, there are a lot of those, and we are very grateful for those, but even $1 helps. $1, it all adds up. And so, and again, please do not feel pressured to donate at all, but if you do feel like you want to donate, please do not feel like you have to give some very large amount. It does not even have to be $20, doesn't you have to be 10. $1 goes a long way, because it all adds up. And so, but again, if just awareness is the key, that's the main thing, obviously. And so that's why we're, trying to get that out there. And I, again, appreciate everybody's support so far. The Fight Game Media family has been wonderful in supporting me, and just wrestling media in general. Some people that I'm friends with who are at other things, they have been really great. And we're very early in this process. And so, it's going to be something we're in for the long haul. And of course it affects, my cousin and her husband directly, but then, it's her larger family, where we are a very close family. We are a big family. I have lots of cousins and aunts and uncles and things like that. So we're a very big family. And this is hitting all of us really hard. And so we'll just thank you so much for the support. And so I just want to get that out there. So you'll be seeing them. And if you would feel free, again, you don't have to donate, but if you want to retweet and just get it out there to somebody who may want to, or just even because I had never heard of DIPG until this. And so I'm sure, because it is so rare, it's not something that a lot of people are familiar with. So, that gets, the more with whatever happens with this trial is going to help other kids who unfortunately get this terrible disease. And so, or illness. And, that's research is important. And so awareness is important, and awareness is important with everything. So I just wanted to get that out there and explain more. That way, if you've seen some of the GoFundMe, but you haven't taken the time, or not taken the time, but, if you haven't had a chance to go back and read, exactly what's going on. And the GoFundMe gives a little bit more information about DIPG overall, and not necessarily, there are some mentions of Sunnie, but obviously her case is different, just not different, but it's different when you hear it from what her doctors are seeing versus what, well,
any experimental treatment, as someone who had one that was fairly experimental once upon more than 10, just a little over 10 years ago.
Right.
The cases it's very difficult, especially with the neuro, with the brain and the spine, and especially with her not being fully grown. I was a full grown adult when these things happened.
Right.
So, there's a lot. It's a lot to go on. And I think that, just like Sam said, anything little, because it's experimental treatments have a tendency to be pricier than normal and not usually covered in.
Right. Exactly.
And I also really appreciate, already the people who have been supportive of this campaign, and just really appreciate the, likes and retweets and, the good part of the wrestling community, like we always talk about. It's one of those beautiful things. And I'm going to pop that right back on the screen one more time if you guys want to donate. And
so now now if you see it in your timeline, you know what it's for and why we're retweeting it. And so if you feel like you want to donate, please don't feel like you have to donate a lot. If you can't donate, that's perfectly fine. Just retweeting it is helpful too. And we appreciate that. So if you see it in your timeline now you know why. And that's
and I'll make sure and on the audio version, if you're listening, I'll try and we'll put a link in the audio version. We'll see if we can get a link in the YouTube. I don't see any reason why our friends.
Yeah, we can definitely try to get it there. And of course, we're, on Twitter. Instagram is a little bit more difficult because you can't post it like in the
it's tough.
Yeah, so I'll try to put it through the Instagram and the Insta story some and try to post it there. That way, if you're on Instagram, you'll see it there too. But yeah, so just thank you for bearing with us through this long episode as it is, and then staying around for a few more minutes so I can talk to you guys about that situation. But I think that wraps it up for us this week, because I think we've talked about pretty much everything.
I think we have, and so everyone have a great go home show week for Full Gear, and keep your eyes on the Fight Game Media everything and the Powerbombshells everything, so that you know what exactly will be. I'm sure everyone's going to be doing something. We just don't know what it is yet.
Surprise.
Or maybe we do, and we're swerving you.
Maybe. You
long-term storytelling. All right, so I guess that does it for us. Everybody have a great week.
Yes, see you next week.